Hello, I'm Matthew Grant from InsTech London, and I was talking this week to Chris.Downer from XL Innovate. XL Innovate is one of the largest Insurtech funds. They've made over 14 investments so far, although none yet in London. Chris has been over here in London taking a look at the market, and he was talking to me about some of the developments he's seen over the last 3 years, and it sounds like they might have some news for us coming in the next few months. Chris, well, welcome to London. You've brought some Californian sunshine with you, but what is it that brought you over here on the back of what must have been a very hectic week out in Las Vegas?
Yeah, it certainly was a hectic week, and it's good to be here in London. I think, as an investor with XL Innovate is an Insurtech focused venture fund focused exclusively on P&C investments. We have a global mandate to invest in Insurtech, and we've been following the London market for a while now, and I think I've been really impressed with the momentum and traction that the Insurtechs have garnered here, especially over the last year. So my purpose here is to understand what the big trends are going on in the UK market, which companies are really seeing that traction and momentum, and hopefully find a couple interesting investment ideas. Good.
Well, I look forward to digging into that in a minute. But just before we start that, the rebranding of or the merger of AXA and ExcelCats, what does that mean for XL Innovate?
Fortunately, we've been very lucky in the sense that we have our own dedicated fund, and our job, again, is to invest that fund. So we've been isolated, I think, in a lot of ways from a lot of the merger opportunities or talks. We certainly have had to educate AXA a bit on who we are and what we do, but we've been fortunate enough to basically have business as usual. And again, that's looking for interesting insurtechs globally, and we're busy enough as is with that mandate.
We've known each other a couple of years, and sort of in the early days of Insurtech, which was only 2 years ago. But one of the frustrations I know from a lot of investors in the US was just the scale of investments you can see out here in the UK. Are you seeing that starting to change now? Are companies now at a level where they're worth spending time with for a fund your size?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the reason why we're here. My first trip over to London was November 2016, and I think while we saw a lot of really interesting innovation and interesting technologies in the UK market, I think what we found at that time, again, that's almost 2 years ago now, was these companies were often quite young, and also often solving problems that were unique to their specific markets. And so I think a critique that we had during that time was really these companies weren't solving a big enough problem, and weren't really thinking about a total addressable market that was big enough for us to really think about having a venture-like investment. And so when we invest, we look for a 5 to 10 times return on our money. And in order to do that, we need to see companies that are, again, solving meaningful issues within the space. I think what's been really exciting, though, over the last year and a half, 2 years, is that mindset and the maturity within the UK market has really changed. We've seen a lot of startups today that are really understanding large problems and addressing those large problems. And so the momentum that we've seen as a result of these companies really addressing that makes it really interesting for us, and again is the reason why I'm here. So we're very excited about the opportunities and the momentum here in the UK market, and are hopeful to engage more thoroughly in it, and definitely expect to be making several investments here in the UK over the next year or so.
And I guess the challenge for you, is for all of us, is keeping tabs on who's out there and just understanding who's out there, and then actually which ones are actually any good. So how do you process all that information? And I'm sure you've got lots of people sending you their pitch decks to decide which ones you actually want to spend time on.
Yeah, so we do it through a lot of ways. We've been extraordinarily fortunate enough to build a portfolio in the States that I think has established us as one of the leading investors within the Insurtech space. That has definitely opened doors, and there's been a lot of inbound as a result of that. We're very fortunate to have a very close relationship with AXA XL, and AXA XL is a global brand and one that has offices, again, throughout the world. So there are a number of folks here in the UK, Lindsay Neiman being one of them, who's been incredibly helpful to us in giving us a pulse on the market. We attend a lot of conferences. You mentioned ITC. That's just one of the many we've been to date, and really just making sure that we understand, again, what the emerging trends are, what the companies are doing. But I'd say if you look at our portfolio so far, it's been primarily focused on the U.S. And I think that's been in many ways a result of the opportunities that we've seen and the maturity of the companies in the space. What we are seeing now, though, is that shift is changing. We're seeing that in funding results here in the UK, as well as the number of new companies that are springing up. So we're very excited about what's going on here in the UK, and again, hope to spend a lot more time here.
And I know it's difficult when we come to talk about the companies you'd be thinking of investing in, but some of the companies that maybe you missed, but actually you talked about ones you've seen some really great things happening. Any companies you can name that you've been particularly impressed with?
I think there are a number of them in the space, and don't want to say that there's a favorite child in the market at this point, but I think that there are a number of companies that have absolutely sort of taken advantage of the desire for insurance carriers to innovate, and whether that's innovating with new product or basically providing technology to really bring forward solutions that can bring efficiencies to the organization. XL is working with a number of those companies here in the market today, and we've gotten exposure to them via the Accelerate groups and the business units, and are very excited to learn more about them. So at the risk of not fully answering your question, I'd say that there are a number of companies today that we're quite interested in looking at and learning more about, and if you contrast that with what that looked like a year and a half, 2 years ago, it's really night and day. And so from that perspective, I'd say that stay tuned. There certainly will be some announcements coming within the next several months, and hopefully more within the next several years. But I think we're very excited about what we're seeing.
I guess anybody that wants to know, companies you've seen and liked should read your newsletter and dig through some of the backstories and
Sure.
see what you've got to say. So on that, one article you wrote, which a lot of people forwarded on to me, and it certainly hit a sort of familiar note for a lot of people, was on this POC, proof of concept purgatory, and the challenges companies have when they go into an insurance organisation and can't really get beyond that initial testing stage. That was a few months ago now. Have you seen things sort of changing now in recently? Yeah,
I think people are more aware of it, and so you see that at Insurtech Connect. There was how to escape purgatory hell session, and I think people are definitely acutely aware of the issue. Whether you want to believe it or not, things are moving sort of at the speed of insurance still, despite I think a lot of the push coming from insurtechs. But that recognition is critical, and so I would expect going forward that there people are both within the carriers and the insurtechs are getting on the same page, understanding what it is they're looking to solve, how the partnerships will work, and then creating milestones that are clear to both sides and enable these insurtechs to escape that POC purgatory. Because without that, I think there's innovation for the sake of innovation, and if there's no real goal at the end of it, then there's really no way for these insurtechs to succeed, and no way for these carriers to truly innovate and change their processes.
And what's your experience been of companies that do this in-house versus those that sort of partner with other organisations? Obviously Lloyd's has opened up a Lloyd's lab now, offering a sort of intermediary, I guess, for doing that innovation. But have you seen some trends where there's been more success one way versus the other? Yeah,
it's interesting. So if you speak to any of the big insurers today, I'd say there's always someone in the organization who said we can build that. And a frustration we've had with some of our portfolio companies is they'll come into an organization and get stopped at the IT side because, again, someone in the organization says, why would you do that? We can build that. I think what's critical for insurers to recognize is that while certainly they could build whatever technology or bring in a solution that these insurtechs are providing, oftentimes that will take many years and several millions of dollars. And with, I think what's really unique and interesting about the insurtech movement is it allows these carriers to experiment and really drive through change at a much lower cost and in a shorter time period. And so from that perspective, I would really encourage the incumbents within the space to really engage with these insurtechs and see how they can solve those problems, because again, it's a cost issue, it's a time issue, and if you're not innovating and if you're not really transforming your company today, you're going to be behind the eight ball come 2-3 years down the line.
And sort of in a related area, I mean, a lot of this depends upon an organisation being able to willing to deploy some meaningful capital or capacity for underwriting the risk, and also just some operational costs. And what are you seeing in terms of the willingness of insurers to take, if not big bets, at least something that's going to actually make a difference in terms of their overall performance, as opposed to something that's just an experiment and can just, again, die for lots of different reasons? But are you seeing companies really committing some real funds now to making this successful? Yeah,
we're certainly seeing companies that are getting on that trajectory. I think the word you use, experiment, is a lot of companies are still experimenting and still trying to understand how it is they transform their organization, how it is they can sort of disrupt internally their own processes. So I think there's an awareness of needing to do this, and I think there's the issue of FOMO, the fear of missing out, is driving a lot of the market. I think a lot of insurers, they don't want to be the first to take the leap, but they also don't want to be the last. So there's in a lot of ways a herd mentality relative to making innovation a priority. And you're seeing that with the number of innovation labs that are popping up across the market, the number of folks that are joining accelerators like Plug and Play. I think they have something like 70 plus partnerships today, which speaks to, again, the appetite for innovation, but also sort of the herd mentality as it relates to driving through that innovation. So I think we're still awfully early within that cycle, which is exciting for insurtechs, because I think there's still a lot of money to be spent on innovation, and hopefully a lot of that will be spent on external initiatives and partnerships. But it's not happening nearly as fast as I think anyone would want it to at this point.
And just back on that point about London and speed, I mean, in theory, one of the advantages that London offers with London Market and with Lloyd's is just the speed of which people can or should be able to make decisions, because you've actually got, if not flatter structures, less people involved in the decision. Geographically, people are close by, and also Lloyd's itself has traditionally been has been the place people go to get insurance for things they couldn't insure anywhere else. So in theory, London should be the hub of what's happening in this insurtech space. And you touched on some of the changes coming through, but sort of thematically, are you seeing things more broadly in the world of insurtech where was a shifting from maybe some of what was originally the consumer applications and a lot of sort of talk around disruption into areas that you would say are more focused around building on the opportunities that London has got for that sort of creativity and sort of fast decision making? I
give London a lot of credit for being sort of bringing creative solutions to the market and thinking critically about innovation. I think there's a bit of a gap now, though, between what's gone on in the States relative to the amount of money poured into insurtechs and what's been going on here in the UK. So there is a gap, certainly, between a funding gap between innovation initiatives, again, focused on insurtech here as compared to my neck of the woods in Silicon Valley. But that's closing. And I think the culture around that innovation is something that London certainly has a very strong leg to stand upon and a foundation to build upon. I would say that, looking forward, you mentioned the consumer applications and sort of moving on from there. We're very excited about sort of commercial lines, more complex risks, folks who are coming from the insurance industry and are bringing sort of solutions to really large problems that haven't been addressed yet. I think we've seen a lot on lead gen, we've seen a lot on distribution, we've seen a lot generally on personal lines, home, auto, renters, you name it. What we haven't seen, though, is a lot of commercial focus. So again, sort of what's going on with commercial lines, and that's really where AXA XL is focused today. And so hopefully that's where we're going to be focusing on, and really looking forward to bringing resources to bear from that perspective.
You mentioned that the big problems that people haven't yet found solutions for. So what would be an example or two of where you're hearing or seeing the gaps that need to be solved?
Yeah, so I think what we've seen, again, just going back to what we've seen relative to what we call the first wave of Insurtech, is a lot of entrepreneurs who are coming in from outside of insurance saying, here's what I know about insurance. I know about my auto insurance. I know about my home insurance. I know how to do distribution better. What we haven't seen, though, are folks who can really speak to the reinsurance market. You ask an entrepreneur who's from outside insurance what facultative reinsurance is, and you'll get a blank stare. But reinsurance obviously is an area that can use a lot of help and can use a lot of, new technologies to drive efficiencies and to better understand risk. And so from that perspective, I think we're really excited about that next wave, and sort of folks, again, who are keenly aware of the issues within insurance and keenly aware of areas that need help. And I think marine risk is a great example. So we recently invested in a company called Windward, which is focused on marine analytics and risk mitigation within that space. The marine insurance market is a market that has been losing money for years, and technology, I think, can help marine insurers better understand their risks, better sort of segment their risks, and also sort of better provide them insights that they don't currently have. And so the idea of bringing new data sources through new technologies to these underwriters so that they can, again, make better decisions, I think is something that is critical. And marine is one example, but you can go across any of those commercial lines and see the same opportunity again and again.
And you mentioned on funding there as well, so really interested in your thoughts for people out there raising funds and sort of struggling to either raise funds or maybe just too modest in what they're going after. And I think people talk about an order of magnitude more that companies are raising in Series A. But so I'm interested, so if you've not necessarily specific to XL Innovate, but general advice for people looking to raise funds over here that have got a scalable solution that could go across to the US. How should they sort of balance doing their fundraising in the UK versus actually trying to tap into the US market?
Yeah, so as a US-based investor, I think scale, that word you use, is critical. We need to, again, if we're investing in a company, we need to find a business that will provide a 5 to 10 times return on our capital. And the way you do that really is by addressing a large enough problem where if you can get a portion of the market, you can reach that scale. And so I think ambition is critical. Being able to really understand the problem that you are solving is very important. We've seen a lot of folks coming from outside the industry, again, talking about changing the nature of distribution or bringing in a new solution. But if you don't understand the problem, you can't provide a solution. So falling in love with that problem, I think, is critical, and really being the expert on that problem allows you to be credible in providing that solution. So I guess as we think about tenets that are important, it's scale, it's the total addressable market, it's the team. So understanding insurance is really important. So certainly we like to see entrepreneurs who are flexible and creative and thinking about these issues. But you can only be so creative or flexible, again, if you understand it. And we find that a lot of companies do well by hiring folks from within the industry or folks who have previously worked there, so that they can really sort of speak the language and translate that problem. And I think that being able to translate that from sort of tech speak to insurance speak is critical. A lot of folks within insurance don't necessarily speak tech and don't understand it. So being able to translate that reduces that gap between the incumbent and the startup. So those are several of the tenets we think about, and I think that's consistent across our portfolio. But what are you doing that's different as well? Where's the moat? Yeah. Where's the defensibility? And that differentiation, that defensibility, I think, is key in terms of once you have that momentum, keeping that lead. because we want to be investing in the top companies in each space. And if you have no ability to really sort of ensure that you are keeping pace and then again sort of pulling ahead, that's not going to be a business that is going to do well in the long term.
So just before we wrap up, for you personally, I think many people consider this to be the dream job. You're spending your life traveling around the world, going to conferences. I think novelty soon wears off. But for people that are interested in getting into the sort of VC side of the business or getting involved as working for organizations that are investing, what's your recommendations for how they do that?
So I got lucky. I got very lucky in the sense that I was in the right place at the right time, and Tom Hutton and Martha Nateras took a chance on me. So I'd like to think part of that was due to some of my persistence. But again, I think a lot of where I am is very good fortune. For folks who want to get into venture, I'd say your network is key. Really making sure that you're meeting the people within the venture community, meeting the people within the areas in which you're looking to invest is key. So you can establish yourself as someone who is knowledgeable in the space, whether that be fintech or insurtech or adtech or whatever it is. And I think that really helps you sell who you are. Venture investing, I think, is an area that is getting a lot of attention, and certainly there are a lot of jobs opening up, but there's a lot of competition for those jobs. And so anything you can do, again, to differentiate yourself by your network. And a lot of venture investing is making sure that you're staying up to date with those trends, and that's through the people in the market. And so, I don't drink coffee, but I certainly have a coffee date or whatever it is as many days as possible, and that's to really make sure I'm staying on top of things and build that network. And so I know that we've been fortunate enough to get some deals through Tom, Martha, my network there, and that's really driving deal flow. And as someone sort of who's young and hungry, a lot of your job is going to be creating that deal flow and creating a pipeline for people to invest in or at least look at. So I think you got to be hungry, and in many ways you got to be lucky, but you got to take advantage of the luck and fortune and really drive that through.
Great. Well, you may not drink coffee, but I suspect if you're back here in the UK or maybe even the US, you might be getting asked out for tea or maybe a pint to pick your brains. Yeah. So just finally, so you came along to our cyber event at InsTech London on Monday evening, and just interested, you as I said, you go to a lot of conferences. Yeah. Just interested in your takeaways from that, and any advice for us as we run these events?
No, I think it was a terrific event, and I think there's a lot of enthusiasm in the market, as shown by the standing room only at the event. I arrived 5 minutes late and couldn't find a seat, which is I think a tremendous kudos to you guys, and tremendous kudos to the London market showing the interest in Insurtech. I think the speaker lineup was fantastic. Again, there was a good diversity of speakers and a good diversity of perspectives, and I think there was because of that, there was a lot of learnings to be taken away, and I certainly took away a lot from that experience. And again, it's not just sort of the atmosphere, the excitement, but also learnings about cyber and things that I hadn't thought about, and I think that was really critical in my understanding. And I think it was a great place for folks to network, as we spoke about there. So I'm excited to see where you guys go next, and I imagine it will only grow from here. And I think if you're interested in the UK Insurtech market, you got to be going to events like InsTech because you'll be missing out if you don't.
Great, and we're very thankful for AXA XL for their support for the event as well. So thanks. Well, Chris, that's been excellent. So if people want to get hold of you or they want to subscribe to your newsletter, what's the best way to find you?
Yeah, well, thanks for the plug there. So I do a daily Insurtech newsletter and would love for anyone who wants to understand what's going on in the market. That newsletter includes generally the top 2 or 3 Insurtech stories globally of the day. Shoot me an email. My email address is Chris.Downer at axaxl.com, and I'd be happy to subscribe you. So the more the merrier there, and hopefully we'll have an occasion to speak more about Insurtech in the future.
Great. Well, Chris, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your trip, and safe travels home.
Great. Thank you.